David Bach. Welcome to Bach Talks. This is our first show. I'm here with Elia Nichols. We're at the Untitled Hotel. Welcome, my friend. We're so happy to have you with us. Bach Talks, a brand new show. We're doing it with the Florentine, my favorite publication in Florence. We're going to talk about them here in a second. It's at the Untitled Hotel. The idea of Bach Talk is to feature each month a local entrepreneur from Florence that might be doing business here in Florence, but also all over the world. So the idea here is for you to join us for 30 minutes of intimate conversation, teach you some things that can change your life, and really expose you to even more people who might not know who you are. The Florentine is our partner in this, and I simply love this newspaper. It has been out since 2005. They're online. You can go to theflorentine.net. It is this publication that actually helped me take my radical sabbatical to Florence back in 2018 when I started reading it. It's what I used to learn everything about Florence and how to come here. And since we've been here in Florence, our radical sabbatical, as many of you know who know me personally, went from 9 months to us now being here 3 years. So we're not leaving because I love Florence so much. And during COVID, I partnered with the Florentine to try and help local businesses because we knew that many businesses were struggling. So last year in 2021, I bought advertising along with my wife to support local businesses. And this year in 2022, we'll be doing not just the articles in the magazine and the newspaper and online, but we'll be doing this show to really, again, go deep into local entrepreneurs. So Elia, thank you so much for being on my first show.
I'm thrilled.
So Elia Nichols, for those of you who don't know my dear guest, first of all, full disclosure, we've become very good friends, but Elia Nichols is also very famous. So let me brag about you a little bit here. Elia has been an actress for 15 years. She is in a very famous show here in Italy, but all over the world, that is in 180 countries on Netflix. Airs every single day here in Italy. The show is called Maggie and Bianca Fashion Friends. When we first met about 3 years ago, we were at a beach club in Forte de Marmi. We met through your husband, Michele, and was with my wife, Alicia, and we were having a spritz. It was one of my first spritzes here. And there were a table of kids behind us that were taking pictures of her, and they were like gossiping, and then they were like, shh, and then they were talking, and then they were, shh, and I was like, what's the deal? And it turns out that basically anybody under the age of 20 here in Italy has watched your show.
Right. And you always, it's like 7 to 14 is the magic age. And I always know when people have watched the show because their eyes get very still, and you can feel this stare, and the kids get really still. I mean, when it first went on air, I went into my son's school and I picked him up and I heard screams down the hall of the elementary school. And, it's Professor Tucker, and these little kids ran up and surrounded me, and I was like, oh, wow, the show has come out. Yeah. And it's a success.
And again, for maybe Americans, like the way she explained the show to me, because I hadn't seen the show yet, is it's kind of like Saved by the Bell.
Absolutely.
But here in Italy and now all over the world. So you were telling me that, because you're in 180 countries, people all over the world are watching your show.
Right. I mean, it was crazy because it was sold to Netflix, and it was sold to Netflix in 180 countries. So what does this mean? This means that my voice is translated into all of these languages as well. So I have friends from Canada, Greece, Russia, China, Portugal, Brazil calling me and being like, you're really good at Portuguese.
Isn't that crazy?
It's wild. It was absolutely wild.
So we'll pick up from the different languages. So
sure.
You've been an actress for over 15 years. You were trained to be an actress. And then give me some background here. During COVID, is that when you realized you should maybe pivot and start this new business? Because now you have a renowned business, which in a very short period of time, in less than 2 years, you are now super in demand doing training for speaking, like truly teaching corporations on how to do better public presentations, executives, you're training politicians. We hired you to do my first video shoot here with money.com. That was 2 years ago. You produced and coached me. You've coached my son Jack on interviews for college. So you're really expanding this whole business that you have. When did you first of all decide to make that pivot?
So, I mean, it actually starts further back, right? Because nothing happens in one instant. I mean, I'm an actress, and I was but I was trained to be. I got my master's in acting, so bachelor's in acting, master's in acting. So I've been trained my entire life. I've been trained to use my body and my voice well, right? And I was trained methods. I was taught well. And I literally was taught methods. This is the Alexander technique. This is the Patsy Rodenberg voice technique. And that's what you learn in school. When I brought that into the real world, it wasn't just about acting, because I immediately, when I got my master's, they made us teach in university immediately. So I started teaching voice classes, body language classes, public speaking classes, and I've always done that. I've always acted and taught. So it was actually kind of a natural progression. But then around, I think it was about 2018, something happened. Michele, my husband, had all of these coach clients kind of flock to him all of a sudden.
Interesting.
But corporate coaches, life coaches, people that were doing retreats, but they were coaches. People that and there were all these coaches. And he came to me one day and he said, "What's a coach? I don't know what these people are doing, right? What is it?" And so I explained to him, and he went, "Well, you could do that. You could do that. You could be a public speaking coach." And I said, "Well, I basically already am. I mean, I already have taught this for years." And he said, "Yeah, but you've been teaching it to university kids. I mean, what if you took it one step further?" And I just, I kind of sat on it and reflected. And then I had a few friends right around that time who weren't getting promotions, who were having hard times meeting kind of their partner. And I thought about this. I thought, I know why they're not getting promotions. I know why they haven't met their partner, because their body language and their voice are not communicating confidence and kind of capability and competence. They're communicating the opposite, right? This kind of closure and this. And I thought I could teach them in 2 seconds how to look and appear and feel more confident. It would radically change their life. So this combination, it just, I don't know, it kind of exploded in my face. And I said, well, why not? So I did, and as soon as I officially, got my partita IVA, which is the kind of business code in Italy, the business just took off.
It's amazing.
Immediately.
So a lot of times when you do shows like this, at the very end, people say, well, how do I contact you? I'm gonna do it at the very beginning and the end. So EliaNichols.com is where you're gonna go find her. And I think you said something early on which is very important to catch, but I wanna go even deeper, is that you said, people aren't getting promotions if they can't communicate well. The reality is, in today's world, what I believe is if you can't communicate, you're gonna have a hard time eating right now. Because the truth is how people are getting their jobs, how people are influencing their teams, how people are getting into the schools that they wanna go to. Everything is your ability to communicate. And you're not watching us right now on a television screen, you're probably watching us ultimately on a cell phone. And so it's become so apparent, especially during COVID, that you can have all the qualifications in the world. You can have the best product in the world. But if you don't know how to sell it in seconds on a little Zoom screen, you're done. I'm on the board of the International School of Florence, and this summer we had to do a search for the head of the school, a global search. And I think there's 12 of us on the board. The process of doing a global search involved, 70 people after the search companies had done all the search. So the search companies took these people, all done over Zoom. Our leadership team, our board, our community from our school was all involved in the interview process. And what struck me, and this is where I go back to you, is that what struck me is as we had narrowed down this massive search to a handful of people, and I would hold the resumes in my hand, every single one of these people were so incredibly qualified on paper.
Right.
But if they didn't communicate well within 2 to 3 minutes on Zoom, they were done because you lose people's attention. So I think as we talk about the next, right now, this is not just for executives, right? This is for
everybody.
Anyone who's got to do anything that involves talking.
Selling their services, presenting themselves well, absolutely. And Zoom is a different beast. Zoom is a completely different, and there are technological reasons why Zoom is a different beast, why the camera is different. When I work with clients, I teach full trainings on how to present well on Zoom or Google Meet or whatever it is, because it is a completely different reality. When you use the camera, you can't have eye contact, right? If you're looking at the people on the screen. But if you look into the camera, as I'm doing right now, it gives the sense that you are making eye contact with the audience. It's a tool that as an actor you're taught. So I actually teach these acting for the camera techniques that I learned when I was in college.
So, bomb us. Give us some nuggets right now.
Right. So if you want to make eye contact with your audience on Zoom, you look into the camera. It's very alienating because you actually see their face below the camera. Right. But you can't look at them, right? So you look into the camera to talk. When you're listening to them, you can look at their faces. And then it gives you audience feedback, which you need, right? The other thing is you have to remember that your hands speak. They speak a lot. But on Zoom, they get lost because we have a little teeny tiny rectangle that's on us. So 2/3 of our body language and communication is lost on Zoom. That makes miscommunication very, very common. Right? So what you have to do is you have to remember that your hands, they are very charismatic. They speak a lot, right? So you have to keep them in the camera.
So I probably shouldn't hold a piece of paper when I'm here talking with you, right? Because I need my hands.
Because it limits your communication, right. Of course. I mean, you're interviewing, so it's normal, right? But when you're on Zoom and you keep your hands under the table, or you speak but your hands leave the screen, you've lost the only communication that you have body language wise. So that's another thing. The other thing is that the camera has this weird effect of emphasizing and exaggerating what it sees physically, but of flattening your personality. So people seem physically kind of bigger, like if you have a broken nose, you notice it on the screen. If you have like asymmetry anywhere, you notice it because it exaggerates what it sees, but it flattens your energy. So on Zoom, people need to use much more energy than they would normally use in real life. So it's Zoom fatigue is real. I mean, it's exhausting to do a good job. So these are things that I work on because otherwise your essence gets lost. Your charisma gets lost.
How many minutes do you think someone actually has on a Zoom interview to grab the person's attention and win that interview?
Max 5. 5 minutes. But I would say the magic number is about 2 to 3.
2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah. So in general, audiences, you lose audiences within the first 5 minutes.
So I'll get like a real world here. So my son Jack is a senior. And like so many high school students applying to college, he's worked so hard. He's got a high GPA. He studied so hard for the SAT test. But those two things are not enough to get you into college today because the colleges today, many of them are doing Zoom interviews. So I've had Jack doing public speaking since he was in middle school. Like we had him do debate team. We had him do Model UN. All these things because I know how important communications is. And I'm like, when you start when you're young, you really have a leg up on people and a leg up on your ability to influence others. So he's been doing public speaking really since he was in 6th grade. I brought him on stage when he was 3 actually. But the point is when it was time for him to do interviews on Zoom, we hired you to coach him. And you coached him in just 2 sessions. And then I eavesdropped and I listened to him crush these Zoom interviews for these schools. Give us some idea of what do you do in it, because you did that in a very short period of time. This wasn't a full day seminar. Mm-hmm. How is it that you're able to take somebody in an hour and coach them so effectively to be so, I guess, quickly influential in an interview? Right.
So in my opinion, it's about awareness. It's about self-awareness. So you have to teach them what they're doing. You have to show them what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So for example, we recorded that Zoom interview so that he could go back and watch it later and see himself and see his body language and see when he was closing himself off, when he was opening. So awareness is the key. The only way to make changes is by being aware of what you're doing. Okay. So that then you can inhibit it and move your body or your voice in the right direction.
Yep.
And your words, right? But for interviews, 2 sessions is enough. I don't really think you need more than that. You prep beforehand, so I sent him the questions beforehand that they were going to ask, and I said prep.
Probably ask, because we didn't know for sure.
But in interviews, they always ask the same questions.
And you also have to know where you want to go, right? Like on any interview for a job, whatever the interview, you have to kind of have an idea of like, this is what I want to say.
Absolutely. You can prep 90% of the content of an interview. Because again, the questions are always the same. So with Jack, I worked on tweaking the answers that he had already prepared. So the first thing is there's homework. You start by doing your preparation. You should never, ever do an interview without prepping. ever.
Did you hear that?
Ever. Because you always know more or less what they're going to ask. Even the tough questions, I call them the sniper questions because there's always somebody that wants to like mess you up. Even the tough questions, you can predict them.
What's an example of a sniper question? Like,
why should I choose you over everyone else?
Okay.
That's a really hard question, right?
Unless you've practiced it over and over.
Unless you've thought about what makes you unique, which is the answer. The answer is what makes you special and unique. That's hard for kids. It's hard for kids to be arrogant and say, well, I know that this makes me unique, but we are all unique, and there is something.
Well, I think it's hard for adults too. I mean, we're interviewing people in their 50s. Why would we hire you over the other 3 people we're considering for the school? Like, you would think by that point, they've got it down, but it's shocking how many people are not prepared
I know.
to communicate via this vehicle.
Medium, I know.
So
then in the interview though, what do? I work with him on awareness, on what he's doing. I teach him the tools I just taught you with the camera. Look into the camera, keep your hands in, use your hands, bring your body forward. Because when you bring your body forward, you're meeting the camera with your energy. If you take yourself away, it creates distance.
You also coached him on lighting. Right now we happen to be in a room that's got professional lighting, and we're at the beautiful Lungarno Hotel, but it looks good also because we have professional lighting. Right. It's very important to have good lighting when you're doing things over Zoom now, right? And I know that you helped Timmy, I think, even set up his room the right way so that he looked appropriate.
Right.
Did you talk about clothes?
Yeah, you have to wear bright colors.
So all these little details really matter. Now, who typically does, we were one example of somebody who hired you, and maybe other parents now want to hire you for their kids' interviews, but who else is hiring you? Because let's start with the big corporations, because a lot of big corporations are hiring you.
Yeah. A lot of pharmaceutical companies, so Menarini, Acclaimed, which is a Greek pharmaceutical, they're actually a Greek consulting company that has a lot of pharmaceutical clients. Biomérieux, which is it's a French pharmaceutical company. The European University Institute in Fiesole, which is literally the Institute of the European Union. I won a tender when I first started my business. I won a tender as their public speaking coach and communication coach. And then I have a few in America as well. Thomas Cuisine, a few Lions and Tigers. So big corporations that need me to hone the communication skills of their execs and even baseline employees.
So obviously, because we've now been living through COVID for 2 years, what percent, and we've had points where we were locked down and where we're not locked down, what percentage of your business is now still being done on Zoom versus face-to-face?
95, unfortunately.
95%,
yeah. Tomorrow I have a training that's in person. I was supposed to do a training next week. Thank you. I was supposed to do one next week in person, and they moved it to Zoom.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, at this point, I'm used to it. I've pivoted, and it's doable. But of course, the effect is different.
But it's also important to know, because if you're watching this wherever you are around the world, the reality is you can come and hire Elia Nichols at ellienichols.com because it doesn't matter anymore where you are. Right. And I think that's what's changed so much.
Absolutely.
I'm really curious. Do you think that anyone is trainable when it comes to communication, or are some people just hopeless?
Oh no, everybody's trainable, of course. You know what the hardest clients are? Though they're the ones that are very low energy, the ones that are very shy. Because to be a good communicator, you have to have a lot of energy. You know that. I mean, you have a lot of energy.
But can't you train someone to fake that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I can go like this and be calm, and then I can be like right? Like it's actually like a learned skill.
Oh yeah. It's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? Some people naturally have charisma, and they naturally are good communicators. Some people aren't. But all you have to do is you have to know the body language and voice behaviors that a charismatic person has, and you try them on every day. It becomes a part of your life. And slowly those become and feel natural. So absolutely it's something you can learn.
I think what's so interesting is that I think a lot of times the people who are highly successful in business, really almost in anything, tend to be the one who has the natural ability to communicate well. However, I also know so many people who have learned how to communicate well. Right. Like I had a natural, I'm not surprised. I mean, I was a communications major at USC, and I've studied all of this. And the more you do it, the better you get. But I know so many people, there's so many things that I'm still learning how to do better, right? And I think it's important for people to know, anyone can do this.
Oh, absolutely.
If you have a good coach. And one of the things I was really happy about hiring you, specifically with Jack, was I knew I couldn't coach him, right? Because it's very hard to coach your own children. But learning a lesson at the age of 18 that you can hire someone to train you quickly to get better at something is an important life skill, right? Like, you've got 15 years of expertise and knowledge, and you're able to instantly fine-tune that and sit down with somebody an hour or two and give them the gift of 15 years of knowledge.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I love this job, because I see radical changes. Radical. I'll give you an example. I had a really interesting client recently. He's a genomicist. Do you know what a genomicist is?
I have absolutely no idea.
Exactly.
Do you know what a genomicist is? That's a good one for a cocktail party.
No, really.
I can't even say the word genomicist.
No, in fact, I looked it up on the Merriam-Webster dictionary yesterday because I was like, is it really genomicist or genomicist? So you know what a genome is? Genes, right? It's part of the genes, yes. So he is a doctor and a researcher who studies genes, okay? And then he creates gene therapies and things. Literally like cancer cures specifically to your genes. That's what a genomist is, okay? Unbelievable. So brilliant man, very interesting man. But the moment he started speaking, his company hired me because the moment he started speaking, you couldn't understand a word he said. Why? Because he's a genomicist and he has a vocabulary that just flies over the rest of our heads. So what I taught him, the first thing I taught him was audience analysis. You have to analyze who your audience is and you have to speak to them. Because if we can't understand what you're saying, your message is getting lost.
Sure.
And then it's useless. Right? So he has 3 audiences. That's challenging. He has CEOs, he has scientists, and he has like marketing directors. Those are very different audiences. So we worked on taking his words, his vocabulary down to the level of his audience. Then we worked on using stories and examples. Then we worked on making sure that his accent, because he has a Northern Irish accent, is understandable to Italians and to all of the different, kind of cultures he comes across, right? And so we took all of this and made him so accessible. And in 2 sessions, the man was the most fascinating person I've ever talked to, whereas the first session, I couldn't understand a word he said, right?
That's incredible. And also because you're videotaping these, was this also done on Zoom?
That was actually in person, but I always videotape anyway. I still videotape with their cell phones, and their homework is to go and watch themselves.
So they can really see the transformation.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah. How about what if I'm just a mom or dad? Because we talked about this. Like, as a parent, you also have to know how to communicate sometimes effectively with your children. How can parents use this?
So, still in body language terms, stillness is power. Stillness equals power. When you think about great leaders, great, politicians, when they're really powerful, they're very still. You see what I'm doing? Like all of a sudden, everything got quiet and everybody listened because I'm very still. If you do that with children, they will straighten up and listen to you.
Now, does this work with Virginia?
You also have to get down on their level and look at their
eyes.
Because if you're like this, it's too scary.
Yeah.
So if you get down on their level, look in their eyes and be very still and lower your tone, then they will listen. She will listen.
Okay, how about spouses? What about communication techniques with spouses?
You have to be.
And I won't ask if you use them on McKelly, but what about, are there things that we can learn to do to communicate better with our partner or our spouse?
I think you would agree that screaming doesn't help.
Doesn't work in my family.
Doesn't work in my family either. So, authenticity, warmth, relaxation.
Okay.
You know what else is really cool? This is one of my favorite things. Do you know what congruence is?
Yes, completely.
Okay, so it's when we're congruent right now.
Yeah.
It's when you match the body posture of whoever's in front of you. And you can even do it with your voice. You match the voice tone of whoever's in front of you. So if you want to get something out of your spouse, or if you want them to really listen to you, you need to be congruent with them because it equals equality.
Yeah, it's like an NLP. It's one of the first things they teach you in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is how to body mirror and body language the person that you're with.
Right. So, and you don't want to do it in a negative way. So if someone's screaming, you shouldn't scream, right? But if they speak slower than you do, speak slowly. You know, if their tone is calmer or slower or warmer, speak with a calmer, warmer, slower tone. Don't do the opposite. Don't contrast, because they will feel that you're not the same in that moment. And it's the same with the posture.
So how about dating, right? Because we've been talking all about interviewing. What about on Zoom if you are now meeting people over like online? Are there dating techniques? Are you doing any dating coaching?
I've never done dating. That's interesting.
Yeah, there could be a whole business just in that.
Right. But I would assume that, I mean, congruence always works. Yeah. In job interviews, it works. I did it one time. I did a job interview one time. It was the worst interview I've ever done in my life, and I was bombing it. And I could tell that I had said something that they didn't like. So I just decided inside of myself, okay, I gotta get this back. And I just copied their posture completely. So they were literally like this because they didn't like what I was saying. So they were like this. So I did it. I just sat, I was already doing badly, so I sat back and did this. And then after about 5 seconds, they uncrossed themselves and moved forward in the table. So I uncrossed myself and I moved forward in the table. And all of a sudden, things were back on track. It got warm again, you know, because it equals, okay, no, things are fine. We're equal, you know, we're the same.
So some people, when they hear that there actually are communication techniques, they think, well, that's manipulative.
But it is.
But it's life,
it's
right?
It's a positive manipulation.
It's like, you know, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Like the ability to win friends and influence people is a result often of our communication skills.
Yeah. I mean, you can study persuasion. You can study persuasion techniques. That's manipulating. But it's in a positive way.
Right.
I mean, I hope you're using it at least in a positive way, right? I mean, I guess if you're Adolf Hitler, no, but you know, think about it as in a positive
All right,
way.
I have a couple fast questions for you. Toasts, right? The holiday season. What makes a good toast?
Energy.
Energy.
Right? Lots of energy, openness, you know, big voice, laughing, humor.
Should the toast be prepared in advance? Like, if I'm at a party and someone says, David, can you give a quick toast? Should I have thought about that toast beforehand? What if I didn't know it was coming?
Okay, so the easiest way to come up with a great toast is a story. So find a story that is going to connect us all, because stories are universal. We all connect to stories and we see ourselves in them, right? So if you come up with a story about Christmas or about the hosts that you want to thank them, or your own memory of something, then all of a sudden there is this it's a way to involve other people and interest them naturally.
So that was a great segue, because I was going to ask you about storytelling. So much has been talked about the importance of storytelling when you communicate. Explain for people who might not know what that exactly means, how you can learn to use storytelling quickly during a communications process.
Right, so storytelling is amazing, because it is the way that we get people to do what we want them to do and to think what we want them to think, which is what leaders do. Right? It's what a team manager does. It's what someone on social media that's trying to sell their services do, okay? You want to change the way your audience thinks and acts, right? The way to do that, the best, most immediate, direct way is through stories. Because stories speak to the heart and the mind. And if you only speak to the mind, to the logic of people, and you don't get their heart involved, they usually don't follow through with what. Yeah, they don't make the decision, because we make our decisions based on our gut, which is represented by our heart and our stomach, right? So storytelling gets to the heart of people, but it also has logic in it, and that's why it's so powerful. It also makes you as an expert, because if you're telling your own story, it proves what you're trying to teach people to do. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense, and it's interesting because I've done that over my career, both on stage and throughout my books. And I think what's interesting about the last book I wrote, The Latte Factor, is this is the first time I've written a book that's a parable. And people say, why did you write a parable? And I was like, because you know what, not everybody can be reached unless it's truly in a story. So I took everything I've taught, which is basic personal finance that I wanted to reach young people, and just simply weaved it into a story. And what's been interesting, like even because this is like the littlest storybook I've written, is this is a book that people read cover to cover in like an hour. Wow. And Jack read this, I could never get my kids to read my books, which is so sad. But this one he read cover to cover on the plane. And he like turned to me and goes, wow, Dad, this is great. I really need one of these IRA accounts. And so the power of storytelling, it's what's changed our lives forever, right? Yeah. Like thousands and thousands of years. And
that's it. That's at the heart of it, is that we're all good storytellers because all we're doing is telling a part of our life. There's no preparation needed. We were raised, the reason we know how to speak, the reason we know about our own culture and our own history is through stories. So it's something that's naturally a part of us. And in fact, if you're going to ever have to give an impromptu speech and you're freaking out and don't know what to say, just tell a story that proves what you need to say, because there's no preparation needed to be done.
That's so good. You have a retreat coming up in April. Tell us about this retreat, because this is super exciting. First of all, do you have any slots left for the retreat?
We have a few.
Okay, so tell us about the retreat.
We just opened up, registrations. I'm so excited about this retreat. It's called the Retreat of a Lifetime.
Good title, by the way, Retreat of a Lifetime.
It's going to take place in Montepulciano, in Tuscany, at this beautiful agriturismo right at the foot of the hills of Montepulciano, surrounded by olive trees and vineyards. But the thing I'm really most excited about is the women. These 4 women, we came together completely naturally, just organically. And we call ourselves the badasses. So there's this agriturismo badass, that's Sandy Ferretti, who owns Relay Italia, where we'll be doing the retreat. There's myself. I'm the actress badass, let's say. Then there's the author badass. Sandy Abrams is this amazing breathwork teacher. She's an amazing entrepreneur. She's been all around the world, worked with Oprah. And she'll be teaching breathwork. And then Gianna Valefuoco is the artist badass. And she's going to be teaching mindfulness and art. So we're going to work on restoring and realigning ourselves through this retreat.
Incredible.
Through this, the flavors and the smells and the beauty of Tuscany, which you now know is a daily part of all of our lives. And it contributes to the quality of our life radically, wouldn't you say?
And radically. And for anybody who lives here in Florence, we all know how beautiful Tuscany is. But when you've never been to Tuscany, or you haven't been to Florence, the pictures don't do it justice, right? Like as beautiful as the pictures are, like when she talked about Montepulciano, and I'm pronouncing that correctly, where you're going, because I've been there, it is so stunning. So how many days is the retreat?
It's 6 days.
6 days.
6 days.
And women and men, or just women?
Just women.
Just women.
We're doing just women.
Us guys never get to go to any of these retreats. I don't know why that is, but how come dudes don't get to go to retreats like this? What's up with that?
Do we really have to answer that question?
I guess not. Okay.
I will answer the question honestly if you want.
Oh, I don't know. Do I want? Do we want to end the review? Yes. Give me the honest answer.
Well, okay. It changes the dynamic, right? Having a man there changes the dynamic a lot.
100%.
And there is less kind of pure opening, true opening.
I get it.
Right?
That's why I did women investment seminars without men.
Also, women tend to be very supportive of each other when there are just other women around. Yeah. And when men get involved, it just changes, the.
So this is a small resort. How intimate is this event? How many people will you
15 max.
15 max. So you're going to sell out quickly. So for them to find out about the retreat, where do they go?
So they can go to my website, elianichols.com, and there's a little tab that says the Retreat of a Lifetime.
Okay, great. And who should go to that retreat?
Anyone who really needs to just step away from where they're at right now. I think COVID has been really traumatic on everybody in the world. Right? We have had to completely learn a different way of being. We've had to learn new ways of working, new technologies. It's been limiting. It's been physically, with the masks, physically limiting and frustrating. And it's interrupted our connections with people because we can't fly, because we have masks on. This retreat is about resetting, realigning, restoring. So anybody that just needs to really stop and take care of themselves, and then explore themselves through mindfulness and creativity, because I think that's another thing that COVID has not been good at for a lot of people, for a lot of people, is a lot of people have felt their creativity has kind of been repressed.
Yeah.
You know?
Now you're at this resort for 6 days. Are you also leaving the resort? Are you exploring Tuscany?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to go on truffle hunts, and we're going to go to do a spa day at the Bagno Vignoni, where all the Roman thermal baths are, and we're going to go do wine tasting at a gorgeous bio-organic vineyard and a cheese farm. And
you don't have one token male, like one token guy?
We have Phil, Sandy's husband. He's going to be way behind the scenes.
How can people, just again, not just for the retreat, but if someone's got interest in hiring you for this coaching and this training, how can they find you?
So ellianichols.com, or my email is ellianichols@gmail.com. You can go to my Facebook page, Elia Nichols Public Speaking.
If someone is wondering if they're right to hire you, do you do like a preliminary consultation? What do you do? Like, how does someone figure out, like, they're watching, like, oh, that's interesting, but I don't know if she can help me? What's the process like when they reach out to you?
We usually do a Zoom call where I explain what I actually do, because my approach is not so typical. I never knew what other public speaking coaches did, but over time I've figured out that a lot of times it's a lot of theory. Mm-hmm. My approach is the opposite. It's very experiential, it's very hands-on, and because I'm an actress, I teach all of my acting techniques. So I teach them the voice technique. So we do really wacky things like voice exercises, because how are you going to get more out of your voice if you don't warm it up? So I teach them how to get more out of their voice. We do body language things, how to open up, what to do, what to do with your hands. I teach gestures. So it's a different approach. It's a lot of fun. But I have to prepare people mentally for what I'm going to take them through, for the total mind-blowing kind of awareness that they have by the end of it. So we do a Zoom call so that I kind of set their expectations and understand what they need. And then we do.
And based on, I'm just curious also, based on understanding what they need, like in our case, when you coached our son, it was 2 sessions. Are some people 5 sessions, 10 sessions? Is it all come down to like like if let's say someone's got a keynote or a TED Talk.
Right.
Is that just a longer
So that's
process?
ongoing. I mean, that's a monthly package, and they probably do 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
Because a TED Talk's long, right? Yeah. It's only 20 minutes. It's not that long. Keynotes, I worked with someone.
Some of these talks are 7 to 11 minutes,
Yeah, I worked with a keynote speaker about 6 months ago that was 60 minutes. So that's enormous. That's an enormous amount of preparation. So that was a good 4 months that we worked on that. TED Talks, there's so many stakes to TED Talks that there's a lot of pressure. So again, you need a good 2-3 months with that. With execs who just want to polish their skills, hone their skills, become more charismatic and more aware of themselves, 8 sessions, which equals about a month, sometimes 2 months. I worked with a Swiss banker for for 2 months, and by the end he was like, "This is great. This is where I want to be, perfect."
And then I guess lastly, I'm just curious, like corporations. When a corporation hires you, especially now that you're doing this over Zoom, what does that usually look like?
Yeah, that's an 8-hour 2 morning training. So 4 hours, usually you skip a day in the middle so that they have time to do homework and watch their videos. So it's 8 hours total.
And so corporate training now, same thing. A corporation can hire you to do the training on. It's crazy how the world has changed. They hire you to do the training online, and their employees are all over the world, not in an office, and they're on Zoom being trained.
Right, they're at their homes half the time. They're at their homes. You can see the Christmas trees in the background or whatever.
I think the amazing thing about, yes, there's been so many things that have been so tragic about COVID, and yet the last 2 years, the way we've been able to all pivot and make an impact from our homes. I've done TV shows from my house, right, on my laptop. I never, in a million years, would have believed that could be possible. The world has completely changed. The world's now on our phone. So I just really wanted to start with you because I adore you. I'm so appreciative of our friendship. And I know that your life skills and your energy and your passion and your purpose, there are so many people here who didn't just get to learn from you today, but there may be people who can hire you to get even better at what they're already doing. Awesome. And you'll be able to have a huge impact on people's lives. So please go check out ellianichols.com. I want you to go visit theflorentine.net. You might be watching me right now on the Florentine.net YouTube, but go over to their website. Check out this incredible publication. It comes out every single month. I literally cannot say enough good things about this publication. Helen Farrell, the editor, who I adore. I read this cover to cover. And this is how I find out the latest and coolest and best places to go in Florence. And then come and visit me, because I haven't promoted myself once here. Go to davidbach.com. Go check out my brand new book, The Latte Factor. If I have any Italian friends right now watching this, We have it out now in Italian, The Cappuccino Factor. This book is in like a dozen languages now, but this is my latest book, and love to see you more. Come visit me on Instagram at David L. Bach. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. Let us know your thoughts on this, because if you enjoy it and we get a lot of great feedback, and then we'll keep doing them. This was our inaugural show, so thank you
so much,
being
David.
a part of the show.
I loved it.
And lastly, thanks to the Lungarno Hotel that is letting us host this at their beautiful hotel. This is my favorite hotel in Florence. This is where I came with Alicia when we first were exploring Florence. In 2018, this is where we stayed, this hotel.
Gosh, is this coming full circle?
Full circle to try and decide if we would take this radical sabbatical for 9 months. And the last funny part of the story I'll tell you is your husband said to me, because her husband, Michele Capecchi, is the attorney that actually helped us move here. When we came here the first day and met with him for the paperwork, he said to me, both of us, 9 months is too short. You won't want to leave. And I thought to myself, 9 months is a long time. I've never taken a 9-month break. And here we are nearly 3 years later. So he was right. Florence gets in your soul.
It does. It makes
you want to stay here. And I feel so blessed to have life here. I'm grateful for our friendship. And grateful for the Florentine, and grateful that you're here with us. So thank you for being here. Let us know if you like this show. And again, you can go to davidbach.com. We'll see you soon. Ciao.